Firstly, I think what Clubhouse did is it took away the monotony of the basic chat-based apps that are there in today's time, and brought a lot more agility and lot more personality to communication. So why I look for people with that kind of mindset is that they're the only people who will stay long and work with you to build something together. Banks do fund businesses which has products, not tech, but tangible products. That's an advantage for D2C brands because you have inventory. The chances that you're going to get working capital from the bank is higher.
Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. Phones on silent.
Phones on silent. Everything is amazing. Let's do it.
Yes. All right. Hi. So last week, Clubhouse got launched on Android. It was a big deal. I was waiting for it for a year. Like literally all the podcasts I follow, they keep talking about Clubhouse. There's been such a big deal. And then last week when it launched on Android, I got on the platform finally. And then there was this Clubhouse room called Namaste India or something like that by Clubhouse HQ. And on that panel, there was a bunch of interesting people. But on that, one thing was clear that Dr. Somdutta here was kind of a big deal. So I did not know Dr. Somdutta before. So during the what I was listening itself, I hopped on her bio and went to Instagram and checked out. So during the chat on the room, I hopped in and then I got a chance to I just pitched in hey, Dr. Somdutta, you're in Dubai. It sounds like you're in Dubai. I'm also in Dubai. Can we connect into a podcast? And then a week
Just
later,
happened.
here we
Serendipity.
Yes. Now the interesting stuff. Okay, let me just give some interesting stuff. So after that, I found out Dr. Somdutta here has such a story. She was born with a tumor on her back. She ran away from home at the age of 15 to study economics. Ran away from home to study. She went on to pursue a career in entrepreneurship, and she is a huge advocate of entrepreneurship. She does a lot of work in the space, which we'll discuss today. She funds ideas, she funds people, and she's founder of a few businesses. One of them is creates tools for companies in the D2C space. She has a portfolio of creative work as an author, and she also has a video series on YouTube with COVID warriors last year. And most recently, this was after after we connected, you were also listed on Times 40 Under 40.
That's right.
Fantastic. And here I am sitting with you. Could not be more beyond pleased to be sitting with you and having a conversation with you. First of all, how are you doing?
Salman, absolute pleasure. I'm so glad you were in that room in Clubhouse the other day and we just connected and I said I'm in Dubai, you're in Dubai, and here I am, with you doing this podcast.
That is awesome. So that's why I want to actually talk to you about Clubhouse itself, because the way this happened, right? Serendipity inside of a tech platform.
Absolutely.
The way it happens to us all the time.
Absolutely.
Most of the friends I have nowadays is people I met exclusively through Instagram.
That's right.
There are new people in my life that I formed a relationship with through DMs and things like that. And this is also another level, because Clubhouse is something new, an audio only platform. I haven't used it much and all that. What's happening? How do you like it? And how's your experience been?
Firstly, I think what Clubhouse did is it took away the monotony of the basic chat-based apps that are there in today's time, and brought a lot more agility and lot more personality to communication.
Yeah.
Right? It broke away from the stereotype, right? Either you have a YouTube where you're doing visual content, but nobody's getting time to interact with you, or you're doing Zoom where you're constantly worried about how you look, how you present yourself, and there is a fatigue. Or you're on WhatsApp and there is a lots of things happening, but there is no vocal communication. And when people are stuck in their houses, in their rooms, not able to meet, not able to socialize, I think what Clubhouse did was bring people together. Yeah. And Salman, who would have thought you and I out of nowhere would connect and meet like this? And that's the beauty of technology. It brings people together in ways that you never thought was possible.
Yes.
Right? And today's Clubhouse, the best thing about it is that the difference between connecting between two people is just one search. Yeah. You search for the person, you follow the person, and after that, voila, everything is at your fingertips, right? So that's the most amazing thing.
And the fact that it is live and you can hop on and just speak to people. I mean, there is a platform out there where you can just get into a topic or something that you're interested, or a person that is hosting it, and then actually have potentially a meaningful conversation, relationship, whatever on that technology platform. Awesome. So what's going on in Clubhouse? What do you follow? How do you spend your time?
So firstly, I joined Clubhouse in early Jan. When I joined Clubhouse, my purpose was to discover. I have so many friends, right? I have a global business, and like you were talking about, right, Asidus, which is the company that I run right now, is a $200 million e-commerce company, and we are in almost 5 continents, over 14 countries, multiple marketplaces, have our own private label brands, and then working with brands. I'm constantly interacting with people, right? That's my life. And I have friends from different parts of the world. And some of these friends, you don't really talk beyond the regular stuff. And then you see them hosting a room on something that was completely different, on Gita and the youth. And I'm like, holy shit, I didn't even know that was possible, right? I didn't know you had an interest like that. So what Clubhouse did was it disrupted our thinking process. What I follow, I'm a Vedic scholar. I'm not sure if you know about it, but I'm affluent with Sanskrit. I read and write about Vedas. I talk about the implications of that.
I've seen you speak about
philosophy is the foundation
Oh, yeah.
of science. And for me, history, philosophy, and science are all interlinked, right? One is the foundation of the other. So I participate in rooms to do with history, to do with science, to do with philosophy, and entrepreneurship. I'm also doing rooms like you saw, the Namaste India Android, which was done by Natasha and the Clubhouse HQ team. You saw founders, Paul and...
they themselves popped in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Rohan and Paul popped in, and they selected us to do the room. The reason they chose us is they wanted people with a certain kind of background to not only be there and communicate, but it looks like, hey, listen, touching base with me is easy. Because most people will think, that, it's so hard to get through Dr. Somdutta because, hey, she is this person who's a hotshot in entrepreneurship. But it's not the truth. We are accessible.
Yeah.
We are also looking to connect with like-minded people. That's why when you reached out to me and you said you wanted me to be a part of your podcast, I immediately said a yes, because I'm like, I'm sure I'm going to get to learn something from you. And thanks to Clubhouse that it happened. So
Absolutely.
it's reducing the barriers that you require to communicate with each other.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, you have to approve someone's request to communicate. Instagram is the same thing. Facebook is the same thing. But Clubhouse, no. If you're in Clubhouse, because it's invite only, you're already authenticated.
I'm actually, I don't want to advocate Clubhouse so much because I was really pissed with them for not being on Android for so long.
I know.
But anyway, totally understand what you're saying, because see, every technology platform brings something to the table.
That's
Everything
right.
has, like LinkedIn, at the end of the day, at least it's giving jobs, actively giving jobs, which other platforms are not doing. But what Clubhouse is bringing is an element that was not existing before, and this new concept of technology. Now there are also so many rip-offs of Clubhouse and things like that. So in India, there's a company called Avalon,
Yeah.
So they have an app called Scenes, and I've been using that because before Clubhouse, and even now I will continue to use it. They had an audio platform up and running, and it was very interesting.
Same thing with Twitter Spaces.
Exactly. So Scenes, what's different about Scenes is like a bunch of youngsters. It's like you open Scenes and you're like shocked, dude. It's all like 18-year-old, 22-year-old talking philosophy, such deep conversations, and
Right.
running scenes all the time. Like
Right.
running scenes all the time. It's so interesting. And so you can just, and it's a small platform. So it's not like Clubhouse. So Clubhouse, in my initial experience of it, like it's giant and there's so much going on.
Magnificent, yes.
Yes. Here, because it's small, like easily you can get on the room and all that. I need to use Clubhouse more as well. So, but I got the sense of it. It's damn interesting. So the kind of way we connected today happened because of it. I totally give credit to that.
So I'll give you examples of how Clubhouse has changed life and how it's different than Scenes or Spaces. Remember something, they created Clubhouse with the idea of building a community of like-mindedness, community of ideas, communities of ideologies, community of science. So you could discover people from different parts of the world with the same kind of thought processes without having to hunt them down.
Yeah.
Based on these rooms. And that's why these rooms are so important, because it allows you to understand, okay, you know what? I have interest in understanding physiological stuff, and I have interest in understanding philosophy, and I have interest in understanding music. Like I connected with Rishabh, who's like the last disciple of Ravi Shankar, on Clubhouse. Okay. And now I'm meeting up with him in New York, and we're planning to jam together because I'm also a trained Hindustani classical singer.
Yeah.
Would it have happened? Nope. He's been on Insta for so long. I'm on Insta, I have a public profile, verified. But we don't connect because there is no way to discover. Yeah. The other thing you have to understand about Clubhouse is that Clubhouse is creating a gateway for talent. Someone like a Salman can now create his own rooms and podcasts and host them on Clubhouse and get payments, right? So you can charge people to participate in your room for the content that you create, and they will pay you for it.
Really?
Of course, that's the
people are doing that?
Yes, people are already. So the reason they launched an iPhone before, you have to understand, Android is open source. iPhone is a more controlled environment, right?
Yeah.
That is one. Two, they were US only before, right? And then they opened up to the larger audience outside. And US, the largest users are Apple users.
Yeah.
The idea was that they're still beta.
They got the product very right because
they wanted to get it very right, so that when they open it up to open source, the chances of it getting hacked or manipulated, or chances of it kind of, propelling and not adding the value is significantly lower. Now they've got all that right. They know what features should work. They know what content should work. They know what Clubhouse is maximum getting used for. And thus they added payments. They said when there are such great content creators on Clubhouse, why shouldn't they be compensated for it?
Yeah.
Do you think that was possible before? Of course not. Like they changed and disrupted the whole dynamics
That's a
of
huge
content.
issue in like the whole creator space. Like
Absolutely.
people are creating content all the time. They're dedicating so much time to creating content. It's because creating content is a job on its own. It's very, very time consuming affair. And YouTube does quite a good job because at least it has a platform that.
But it's non-interactive. It's one-sided. You watch, but you comment, but you can't interact with the content creator. But imagine here,
I'm talking more from a monetization perspective. People are making a career out of like
100%.
being purely
That's
on
even
YouTube.
on Instagram. Like I make a couple of rather $100,000 more than that in a year just doing promotions. And do I need that money? No, of course not.
I think that is more of like a brand. You branded content. You're doing something for a brand, but the platform itself paying you. Like if Clubhouse will begin to do that, I think we need more of that. I think the creator space itself need more of an initiative from the platforms to actually try to compensate the creators better.
And that's why what you need to do is, if you go to the settings of Clubhouse, there's a way for you to give feedback. The reason they added the payments feature was actually based on feedback. What the content creators actually said, that at the end of the day, we don't just want to create great content and we have people just participating and listening to it for free or getting access to it for free. We want to be paid for it. That's why they added payments. So now that you're saying that, hey, how can Clubhouse become a monetization platform? Just a 1-year-old platform. Give it 6 months more and I'm telling you, it's going to become way bigger than even YouTube. It took YouTube a long time to get $1 billion valuation. It took Clubhouse less than 8 months to get a $4 billion valuation. So Elon Musk coming on Clubhouse and vouching for Clubhouse just shows the potential of Clubhouse. Am I a Clubhouse creator? No. I'm a Clubhouse participant, right? So I'm not the one who founded the company. I'm not the one, but I'm a participant who's become a beneficiary of Clubhouse. And I've met people like Natasha or Kunal, the people who are in the room with me, or Markan. I've never even met them. And they're now like family. They're like, we're talking to each other every single day. When was the last time you thought that was possible?
True. Also, like, I follow this guy, Kevin, Tim Dillon.
Tim Dillon, yes.
Amazing
guy.
comedian.
Yeah.
So this guy is like on Clubhouse because people, all these VCs, Chamath and all these guys follow Tim Dillon for his comedy. And Tim Dillon follows them for their thoughts on technology.
Their thought leadership,
thought leadership. And now they are connected and they're friends on Clubhouse. Like
I'm telling you.
People from two different
do you
worlds.
know that Drew, who's Clubhouse's face? She and I are friends. We are going to catch up for a coffee when I'm in LA.
Wow,
So that's the beauty of Clubhouse, because she came to the room, she saw my profile, she reached out to me, and she's like, Kunal Sood. I've known Kunal for a long time.
He was in the room, Namaste.
Yes. So Kunal is he's a TED chair, right? He's one of, and he's a part of the UN. Kunal and I are so close right now.
Okay.
Can you imagine meeting these people if not for Clubhouse? Like, we have the same fraternity of people. I know a lot of big guys and, move around. But there are people who become close because of Clubhouse. And it's not about just meeting them like that. They're now like friends. They're like, hey, come stay with me. It's that kind of a relationship, right? So that's the power of Clubhouse.
So there's this common wisdom that, you need to network more for your career to improve.
Absolutely.
Okay, here it is. Here's a solution. Like, use it.
Clubhouse is the best networking platform in our generation. And I'm a millennial. You're younger than me, but I
also
think,
a millennial,
so I definitely feel that Clubhouse is the platform for networking. I'm never a fan of LinkedIn. I'm sorry, I'm saying this on camera because very honestly, it adds very little value unless you're an employee or an employer. We are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
We are thought leaders. We are disruptors. We are innovators. We are content creators. And we need a platform that is our advocate. And that's what Clubhouse does.
Even what about like for people who are employees? Like what about them, Clubhouse? What are ways in which they can engage? You said about budgets
You
and
talked
things.
about
Yeah.
you talked about being an entrepreneur, trying things. Imagine now you have a platform where you can actually go and validate your idea by creating a room, and investors can listen to you.
Yeah.
There are pitch rooms. People are pitching their ideas. They're talking about initiatives, and you're like, dude, you are now getting to connect with the partner in Blackstone or a Tiger Global. They're all on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
So the other thing for employees, if you have a dream job and you want to connect with the guy who founded the company, go to Clubhouse, ping him, and that's
So
it.
what I want to do, what I was thinking, because like I'm working on Salman Needs a Job, right?
Right.
I want to kind of try to also evolve this a little bit into more of
Start your room if you
jobs.
want. I definitely think you should start a room, regularly host a room on Salman Needs a Job. And it's so funny
Yeah.
that people will actually come and join the room and you pick up a topic that you want to discuss and you take it forward from there.
I'm thinking more like live job interviews and things like that. Like
That'll
to
be
actually
amazing.
give jobs through
That'll be amazing.
something like this
I think that's
platform.
very interesting because not a lot of people have that.
Yeah.
There is no live job interviews based on skills or categories or skill sets. I think you can do a phenomenal job if you can kind of do that and make it happen.
Yeah. So I'll connect with you on that to find out
Sounds
more.
great.
And anything else you want to add in terms of people new to the platform, thinking about like any first steps you want to add or something like
Absolutely.
that? And then we
I
move on.
think one thing very important to understand about Clubhouse is that it's a platform based on interest and action. So when you sign up, you're basically sign up expressing your interest. And then based on your action, which means the kind of rooms that you participate in, it starts recommending what's best for you and the communities you should be in. And the more communities you become a part of, so let's say you have a startup, you become a part of the startup community. You have something else, like you're a musician, you're a podcaster. There's so many communities on podcasts. So based on what you want, you get to it and then just keep being active. The more active you are, the more people will follow you. The more room you're in, the more people will follow you. The more followers you get, the more visibility you get. That's it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, let's talk about you. You have such an interesting life. So for people, I just want to paint a picture. All this I told in the intro was from, I saw your TED Talks and a couple of other videos that you have on the internet. And I was totally surprised. I did not know the person I'm going to speak to has such a fantastic story. So much inspiration
Thank you so
from your
much.
life. And I really love that. So I really want to like talk about that a little bit. So first of all, could you just give me like your origin story a little bit? Who is Dr. Somdutta and what does she do now?
Amazing. So Salman, Dr. Somdutta, if I have to put it in,
Somdutta,
yes,
I'm
if I have to, if I have to put it in 3 lines, she's a student of economics. So by education, she's an economist. I did my PhD in economics from MIT. By passion, or rather profession, I'm an entrepreneur, and by passion, many things, right? Like from music to authorship, as you know, I write books, to playing golf as an amateur golf champion, many things, right? But it didn't start like that. Like you said, I was born with a cerebrospinal tumor, was told to my parents that chances of survival is absolutely dim, and my mom taking a chance with my life then, and I taking chance with my life till now, that's how my life has been. So from there, my life changed completely, and that's not where it stopped. I had almost 6 other additional surgeries, including an aneurysm, until till I was 24 years old. I had some of the other health issues, but that didn't stop me. I knew what I wanted to do. Both my parents are doctors. I didn't want to be a doctor for 2 reasons. I spent enough time in hospital already. I didn't want to go back there. Second, I think I was always more creatively inclined than just, medicine, right? While I think in today's day and time, doctors are God. There's no 2 ways about it. And I know they were always God, but I didn't want to play God. I wanted to play the creator, and
Okay.
that's why I became an entrepreneur. Sorry, you want to add something?
Yes.
Yeah.
To add something there, you
Yeah.
just skipped over something huge, which is at the age of 15, you had had the opportunity to become a doctor, like
Yes.
by invitation from your parents, being a Bengali and these other societal factors probably, and you choose economics. Like, what is economics? Who at the age of 15 is like, I want to run away from home and be an economist? Where's that thinking coming from? And where do you get that energy to actually take such a drastic life decision?
A phenomenal question, Salman. Blame it on my father. I think he was kind of grooming me to be someone who had extreme amount of curiosity, right? Because books were my best friends. I started reading at a very early age because my initial days I was very sick, so I would spend a lot of time in the bed in the hospital. But as I grew older, I became a very active child. Like, I think after my 5th birthday, I was very active. I was amazing with sports, dancing, music. Indeed, in school, I had more interest in other things than just studies, right? So my dad gave me a lot of books, and reading became a part of my journey. But another important factor was that I had an opportunity to meet Mr. Amartya Sen when he had come to Bengal for his relationship that he had with my grandfather from my mother's side. And as I heard him speak, it kind of enamored me completely. And I was like, that is who I want to be. Because he was not just an economist. He was somebody who was making policies. Wow. He was making changes in the very fabric of the society that is going to drive the economy. And I remember something he said so beautifully. No matter what you do in life, unless you are deep down inside an economist, you add no value to the society. Because think about it. At the end of the day, the value of a country is determined by the GDP, the net asset value, the terms that actually decide, like, okay, what is your per capita income? Today, when somebody asks you, they will ask you something like, what is your net asset value? What is your overall valuation as a company? Everything is determined by economics. Economics is, at the end of the day, the marriage between art and science, right? So you take your econometric factors of the binaries of 0 and 1, and you derive what is going to propel the growth of a country, a state, a larger horizon. And at the end of the day, most important thing is, even in a company, when we are doing our P&L, everything is derived by that. So if you see, that's the very foundation of anything that you do.
Yeah.
If you're a scientist and you were given a budget to work on your project, you still are an economist deep down inside, because you have to factor in your expenses, you have to factor in your profit and loss, you have to factor in what all other things that you're doing. So it's all, at the end of the day, everybody deep down inside has an economist. It's just that you need to hone it. If you're good at it, you become a great entrepreneur. And no great entrepreneur can be good at what they do unless they understand the basic factor of economics. Because if you don't know how to predict demand, you don't know how to build a company.
Yeah.
Right? Because you need to know who your customers are. So all that is a part of economics. Marketing was, of course, an outlay of that.
Okay.
Marketing became a subset of economics.
Okay.
Right? But it's all, the foundation is based on economics. So when I heard him say that, I'm like, which is true. Imagine my dad is in a hospital, and even there, everything is economics, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a factor of who's coming in, what are their contributions, how many people, how many resources. It's all, at the end of the day, the math of economics.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of drove me to take that subject up.
At what age did this Amartya Sen incident happen?
I think I was 14 that time. Until then, honestly, if you ask me, I wanted to do multiple things, right? Not a doctor for sure. I wanted
that's clear.
for a time being, I wanted to look at maybe chartered accountancy, because I found, that very interesting. Of course, I was still very young to understand the dynamics of marketing, but I wanted to definitely kind of, I of course considered that, okay, I want to be a traveler. I've even thought of maybe engineering, but none of them had that kind of a value add or an intrinsic motivation like listening to Amartya Sen did to me, right? So that was kind of the changing point in my life. And the more books I read, from Chanakya's Arthaniti to Adam Smith, like everything added to the conviction that this is where I wanted to go. So whether Adam Smith talks about, he actually talks about science being a subset of economics, but how important it is, right? Even from that perspective, to Chanakya talking about the whole foundation of a state being built on economics, right? That's why it's called as Arthaniti, right?
Okay.
So the Niti, which is basically your statement, your facts, your subjugation, is all based on those pure fundamentals. What drives money? What drives asset? What drives, building something which is fundamental and foundational. So so that's why It is what it is.
So, like, what I find like absolutely fascinating in this is how one man and the work of one man introduced into your life has such an impact on it. So, this person inspired you to give you the first touch point towards economics by giving a very deep, informed piece of information to you. You went out and learned about the concept through books and
Yeah.
all of these things,
Yeah.
and then you chose to get educated on the subject by studying it, by pursuing it.
Absolutely.
So you build the skills for it, and like the way it happened is like a story on its own.
That's why they call it serendipity. You know, sometimes destiny has its own way to take you towards it. You just have to follow it. There's a reason they call it the gut feeling. You know that the longest nerve is between the gut and the brain. And the feeling that you get sometimes, that gut feeling that something
I see.
propels you to do something, and the brain kind of quickly gets stimulated by it, it's purely because of that.
I see. Okay.
So always listen to your gut feeling. Even if you go wrong many times, it's just taking you towards your destiny.
Yes.
And I held on to it. So running away from home was not like I wanted to do it. It's because my dad left me with no option. But Salman, over time, I realized why he did it. He did it because he wanted me to succeed on my own.
Yeah.
How many kids today are rebellious, but that rebel is without a cause? They don't succeed because they can't survive. It's not easy to be on your own and figure things out. The reason I could do that is what made me a very good entrepreneur, because no matter what the situation is, I'm always finding a solution, and my focus is always the solution and not the problem.
Awesome. Now, tell me about that. The transition from being an economist to an entrepreneur. I know that since childhood you had these tendencies. You went to Bangalore at PG. You had these entrepreneurial
Yep.
activities that
Yep.
you indulged in, like selling chocolates
Yep.
and
Yep.
tailoring and all these
Yep.
things, which you spoke about in other places. Very interesting. How did you get into technology though? Like now you're like a technology head working on creating products
That's right.
towards in the D2C space and all that. How did that happen?
My school gave me, when I was doing my PhD, was my first exposure towards a lot of technology geeks. I love them because I think that they know exactly what they're doing. If you want to build a great product, I think you need complementary skills. And like you said, let me start with the first part. I'm not a technologist. I am a strategist. I build ideas, but the execution is done by a great team of experts that I have. I have an amazing team. I have a CTO who's brilliant. I have a CDO who's brilliant. I have a CEO. So I have a great team of experts, because way back in school, I was told something that if you want to be a great entrepreneur, hire people who are better than you. A great entrepreneur builds a company that can stay afloat without them.
Okay.
So if you get too attached to your company, and if your company becomes too dependent on you, then you're not a good entrepreneur. So I built a company that could function without me, right? So that was first. Second thing,
What was your first company?
My first company was Unspun. So we had products like Act, MyPR.io, and VideoKen. So all these three products were all digital first products that was allowing people to do their ad automation using our platform, right? So we had really big clients like P&Gs and J&Js that we were working with. And that's where I got the idea of building a Sidus, right? So my first company got acquired by Seapol. My second company, which was a crowdsourced fashion label, got acquired as well. And my third company, which is a Sidus.
That one I want to talk about. Sounds like such an interesting concept. Thank you. It sounds like such an interesting concept.
Right.
Crowdsourced platform which you handle so much, right? The platform itself handles like not crowdsourcing of the designs, but also you do the distribution of the products within your service.
Absolutely.
Like it's not just a technology company.
It was not just a technology company. We were doing the research in terms of we were allowing people to submit their designs. The algorithm would actually monitor the designs, tell us, if it's 70% pure, because that's a standard. Then we would find manufacturers to actually go ahead and manufacture the products. So we don't have any investment in factories, but we were using existing manufacturers to do the manufacturing, which is called private label. And then we were distributing it, right? We were selling it in our stores and other stores as well. And when we knew that, it had reached a point where we needed to kind of exit, we exited. So I think as an entrepreneur, it's also very important to know when to exit your business, right? Because you can't start building and realize that you can't scale it beyond that. It's important then you kind of go ahead and exit the business, right? The third thing, which is superbly important, is that today what we're building with Asidus, and each one is a milestone. My first company, I knew that, I wanted to make it let's say $100 million company. My second company, I'm like, okay, this is the valuation. I'm building a side as to be $1 billion company. The vision is so important. You need to know what is the possibility of your idea. And you need to do deep research and validation to know that you're not thinking of something that is hoaxy and not possible, or it's all in your mind. You got to be very prudent, right? So I always say a good entrepreneur is a balance of passion and prudence. If you get too passionate about your idea and you have not done enough market research to validate it, then you're not being prudent. And if you're not prudent, chances of your failure is way higher.
I'm sorry, I don't know what prudent means.
Prudent means practical.
Okay.
So prudence is when you're very practical of knowing exactly where you're headed, right? Because maybe you're building something that is so ahead of the curve that nobody is there to buy it. Then what's the point of you building it?
Right.
You can be a Nikola Tesla, but Tesla got his due way after his death. So it's a choice you have to make, that whether you want to be a Tesla or a Thomas Edison, or you want to be a mix. Or rather, that's where Elon Musk says so beautifully that, you know what, Tesla is my inspiration, but Edison is my execution, right? Because you need to know where to get inspired from and where to execute. You need that balance. Otherwise, you can just be a great entrepreneur in paper and somebody will remember you 10 years down the line when you're gone, than be a great entrepreneur today and build a success story which is simple yet disruptive, like what they did with Clubhouse. Now, in terms of, in terms of coming and putting all this together, each company of mine taught me something that I took to the next. And I exited knowing when is the right time to exit. So it's very important,
This is, I don't hear this advice often, like you need to exit on time, you need to when to exit and all. I think it's really important.
It's very important. Very, very important. If you see history, if you see old businesses, a business sold to a business when there was the right time. Because you can scale only up to a certain level. So I always say this, you want to be a Google or you want to get acquired by one. But building a business without having an exit plan is a death row. You're already on a death row. Because you cannot do that. You need to know, what are you building this company for? Are you complementary to another company? Or are you building something so innovative that it's going to stand on its own?
I want to ask a personal question with respect to that right now. Now, like I have Salman Needs a Job, right? And I'm also thinking about doing something with salmanneedsajob.com. It would be like it would serve like consumer space or whatever. I am yet to figure out what exactly that needs to be. But then, in terms of you're not going to have an exit if you have your name on it.
No, absolutely not. Think about how many companies today. The Johnson & Johnson or the Procter & Gamble's or even companies like Bennett & Coleman, all of them had a name on it. Not having a name on it is actually a very 90s thing, or rather 2000, right? It's a very this century thing. It's not last century at all.
Wow.
Some of the biggest, why do you think Tatas and Billards, they all had their name attached to it?
Right. Now that you say, every company. JP Morgan is simply a name.
It's a name.
Yeah.
Ernst & Young is a name. Right? That's why I told you, like every single PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, everything, all the law firms in the world are names. All the accountants in the world are names. Ad agencies in the world, Ogilvy and Mather. Anything you think about is a name. That's why, when somebody asked Shakespeare, what's in a name? He said, there is a lot in a name, right? So there is no harm in what your name is or name of a company is. What matters is what are your company going to do? What problem is it going to solve? Is it something unique? Are there enough takers? Is a problem genuine and validated and the demand global? Don't build something just for one country. Build something that can have a percolated effect on multiple channels, right? So that's the only thing I have learned over time. And it's not that life has always been hunky-dory. I've had many failures. I've learned through many things. And here I am.
Awesome. I want to get into more specifics on the D2C space because you're knowledgeable about it, and I think it's useful for people to find out because there's a lot of opportunities here. But before that, further down on entrepreneurship, can you tell me about what are the kind of people that work with you? What does it take? What do you look for in people? And in general, I also heard from reading your previous work that you also encourage entrepreneurship within your team.
Yes, I do.
So could you tell me a little bit about that?
Whenever I'm hiring someone, I think culture is a very important part of our organization. What I mean by culture is three things. The culture of collaboration, communication, and most importantly, innovation, right? So I call it the CCI culture. So why I look for people with that kind of mindset is that they're the only people who'll stay long and work with you to build something together. I am not looking for employees. I hire entrepreneurs. I hire people who have the urge to build something. So when I give them a stake in the company, I know I'm doing the right thing and they're going to stay on to build the company to the vision that I have. I'm a visionary. I don't sit and execute everything. So the team has to be somebody who understands what it takes to execute, but at the end of the day, own and drive it and be accountable for it. So that's something which is very important for me. And if they're not good in communicating their ideas, if they're not collaborative, and if they're just very like siloed, they're not the kind of people who will fit into our team.
How do you identify that? How do you understand?
We do psychometric tests. We give projects to kind of see how they think, how they execute. We actually ask them to come up with an idea. We ask everyone.
Are you satisfied with the way that you're of this process, and you think like...
We have right now a team of close to 60 people, and I've not had a single churn in my top management in the last 4 years. So I think that speaks volume.
Yes,
They've all stayed, they've all been there, and they're continuously growing. And there are times where we have let go of people in the second level, but otherwise people usually stay because they grow. People who have come in one role have been able to grow to the next role. It's not just horizontal, it's also vertical. So there is two kinds of opportunities that exist within the company that, if somebody's joined in research, they can move into operations if they want, and vice versa. And we want to give them that opportunity so they can learn and they have significant skills that they can maneuver, cultivate in themselves that keeps them excited, because human mind gets tired and bored very easily unless you give them something to stay excited all the time.
So you're talking about like these negatives, like don't work in silos and all. What are the negatives that would push you away from a potential hire?
I do not hire someone who is purely giving me bookish answers, who's not well read. For me, it's very important to understand that do they read? Do they take interest in affairs beyond just the job, right? So I check their knowledge on socioeconomic issues, even politics.
Really?
I ask them, of course, 100%. So we have a part of our interview that even asks them questions on political affairs. That, okay, something like this is happening, so what are your thoughts on it, right? Just for us to understand, if they're not well read and they don't keep their horizon open, then can you imagine how quickly they will start getting bored in the current job? Because they'll not read beyond it. They don't have other skills. I would never hire someone who is one-dimensional, has quit jobs too often, or has not tried their hands on something even while they were maybe studying, or even a project which they have, let's say, tried something unique. If they haven't and they're like, you know what, yeah, I didn't have a chance, I don't like excuses. So I wouldn't hire somebody like that.
Interesting. That's so interesting. I've never heard of this kind of an attitude towards
No, absolutely. We ask people questions like, if you ask me now, I would have asked someone about the Israel-Palestine issue and I'll ask their input on it. I'm like, what do you think? And that will give me insight whether the guy actually has a life and a thought process and a thought leadership. Why would I hire someone and pay them if they're just doing bare execution?
Yeah.
I can train anyone to do that.
Okay.
Why would I hire someone who doesn't question us? And the other thing, which is absolutely no-no, is I don't like yes sir or yes ma'am people. I like people who can debate, but not argue. There is a difference.
Yeah.
Argument comes from a state of ego.
Yeah.
Debate comes from a state of knowledge. So I like people who like to debate, and I don't like people who like to argue and just somehow put their point across.
Got it. Now let's talk about opportunities. I want to talk about opportunities for anyone who's listening, who's come till here in the podcast. Thank you. See, you're very involved in the direct-to-consumer space, and I think that's awesome because there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of new brands that are coming are direct-to-consumer. There's a lot of benefits to being direct-to-consumer. There's a difference between D2C and e-commerce. So if you can just explain that, one. And in addition to that, also like opportunities in India, like because you are also, I've seen your previously talk about like the incentives that India gives and the kind of opportunities the kind of excuses you shouldn't have because you're in India and things like that. So just in general, what are the kind of opportunities that you see in India, and also like start with D2C versus e-commerce? And
I'm a big fan of D2C, is why I'm in D2C. The difference between D2C and e-commerce is that D2C brands can be in e-commerce and in retail and omni-channel. E-commerce is meant for D2C brands. Of course, when you're in e-commerce means you're direct to consumer. But when you're doing e-commerce, it can also mean that you're just a platform. So Nykaa is a platform, plus Nykaa has its products. So which means Nykaa is an e-commerce platform that has D2C brands that it sells of its own and of those of others. Same thing with Amazon. Amazon is a marketplace that is for other brands, and it is also has its own portfolio of D2C brands. Now we have a portfolio of our own brands, which we sell on different marketplaces. Those brands currently are e-commerce only, which means they only sell online. That's what e-commerce stands for.
Yeah.
However, they have an opportunity to go to retail as well. But we have kept them purely e-commerce because we like data-based decision making. We have access to a lot of data because of e-commerce, and that's the beauty of that. When it comes to retail, when you're basically selling in shops, you have to remember that your dependency on data is purely based on what you're getting from your distributor. And sometimes it's not always authentic, except for the number of sales. You don't get to know who your consumer is, etc., etc. With e-commerce, it's a flip. You get to know everything. You have intelligence, access, data, insights, analytics that can make you do a lot more futuristic, well-planned projections and allows you to grow as a brand significantly with the right kind of intelligence to back you up. So
and the kind of precision you can have in your product development, in your website life cycle, and
absolutely,
all that,
100%.
because of every point of interaction has a data associated, a piece of data associated with it.
100%. I completely agree with you. Now coming to the point where I was talking about the opportunity that is there. E-commerce has seen the biggest amount of boom. Huge, right? Whether it's Amazon, Walmart, Flipkart, Nykaa, name it. They all are scoring big and they're just going to grow. The pandemic not only has created a new forced user behavior where more and more people have come online to shop. People who never tried before are doing it now. So the opportunity is humongous. A lot of private label brands have launched themselves and is going to only continue to grow. India is poised for great growth, but we need a lot more manufacturing, a lot more support internally to be able to support that growth. But I think, yes, it's a great time. It's, to me, every adversity is an opportunity, and that's how I've led my life. And I think this pandemic has been a huge boost to my company. I said this everywhere that, we've grown by almost 300x and we continue to grow. But it's not just me. It's many people like me who have grown is why we have grown. This is a great time to be in D2C. So if you're listening and if you want to build your brand, this is the time to do it.
What does it take to start a D2C brand? Like, what should someone expect before they set out to begin? So obviously they would have an indication of what the product is going to be.
That's right.
And they need to have some knowledge about building a brand. But then additionally, like, what do they need?
They need money, 100%. You can't build a D2C brand without having funds. Right, so you got to know that at the end of the day, the initial setup, working capital, etc., has to come from you, and that will take me to that question where you asked me about the subsidies and the support that the government gives. Banks do fund businesses which has products, not tech, but tangible products. So I think that's an advantage for D2C brands because you have inventory. The chances that you're going to get working capital from the bank is higher because there is something that for the bank to encash on. So I think that's a big advantage to start a D2C. But yes, you do need initial capital. Working capital is essential because you have to invest in manufacturing, you have to invest in starting the first stage, and then you go to the next part, right? So I think that is something where people have to take into cognizance, that it's not like, just wake up and you start. So it is a lot of planning. You need to know which category are you going to launch in. Is it going to be health, nutrition, beauty, home and kitchen, technology, electronics? What is it? Then you need to know what kind of competition exists there, what kind of reviews and ratings they already have, what kind of market size exists. So there is a little bit of research, deep dive that is essential before you go ahead and launch the product. But once you've done your research, then you have to find a manufacturer, depending on the geography that you're selling in. If you're selling in US, idea is that you are finding a manufacturer somewhere where it's approved by US for trade, it's easier to do it, etc. So those things are important. And if you're doing in India, again, finding a manufacturer in India who is approved, has all the licenses in place, so that tomorrow if you're looking to grow, if you're looking to go beyond India, it is not a challenge for you. So those things are important to keep in mind before you start, but you do need capital. So
awesome.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Now, Shopify versus like like Amazon and other marketplaces.
Right.
Like, what do you think? Like, because a lot of brands now are like exclusive only
Right.
on their own platform, Shopify or whatever. They
Right.
have their own in-house platforms,
Right.
and they sell exclusively through that. But they focus on brand building and all these other efforts. And even in India, there's some really interesting D2C brands coming up in health and in so many other different spaces. So, what do you think? Like, your view on like either being like open to Amazon or Flipkart and things like that versus being exclusively through your own distribution?
Shopify is your own website, right? Amazon is a marketplace. I always believe it's smarter to sell in a marketplace because it has ready-made demand. It has already consumers that are there. If you're on Shopify, and unless you have a lot of money to fund that, and you can spend a lot of money on Facebook ads and Insta ads, etc., you can't grow that platform. It's not easy. It's just a website. You have to remember that, right? I'm a big fan of Shopify, and you can only have Shopify if you've already built a brand in a marketplace. So I think keeping and building a brand in a marketplace is very important before you just start doing your own distribution, because at the end of the day, it requires money and budget. So you need to be cognizant of that.
Got it. Thank you. I think we have a great episode. So I
I'm
just want
very
to close it
excited.
with what are your future plans, what's going on, and first of all, congratulations on Times 40/40. You're
Thank
going
you.
to New York, US in a couple of days. Tell me about where you live. Are you based in Dubai? Like,
I have 3 homes, New York, Dubai, and India. I spend more time between New York and Dubai. Of course, in US, I'm constantly traveling, so I'm going to be starting with New York. I'm going to be in California, then I'm going to Atlanta, then I'm traveling to Hawaii. Lots of things lined up. We're about to close our second big round of funding, so I'm very excited about it. A lot of new brands are onboarding, so we are excited about that as well. One of the other things that is happening is that we are now going to be live in Japan to sell, which is a great thing. So Japan is now added to our portfolio. We already sell in US, Canada, Europe, UAE, KSA, India. Now with Japan, that just takes us to the next level. So we're excited about that. Goal is still, before 2025, be $1 billion company. Either get acquired at $1 billion valuation or be at $1 billion valuation. But yes, that's where we are headed. And yeah, grow, excel, and add value.
thank you. Any final thoughts you want to add? Like something you want to give a shout out to, or just any question you have for me or whatever?
Absolutely. I think, Salman, it's been wonderful being on this podcast with you. And I definitely think you should take the Salman Needs a Job thing seriously. India today has a huge deficiency of the right channels to create a job-worthy environment. I don't say that jobs are the only way to go, but the only thing is that, yes, we got to be cognizant that that's what a lot of people need. But if there is a platform through which they can find the right people, definitely leverage Clubhouse as much as you can. And I think you should, podcasts are a great way of getting people together, sharing ideas, bringing great people in front of others. And hopefully the people who are watching this show with you and me today can reach out to me if you're interested in either working with us or collaborating with us, and just take it forward from there.
Thank you very, very much. This is the real Somdutta on Instagram and Twitter and Clubhouse. Your Clubhouse
Absolutely,
username.
yeah. The Boss Lady Show. So that's @the Boss Lady Show. So that's where I'm in. For Insta is the real Somdutta, and Twitter is Shom_Twitter. LinkedIn, it's very easy to find me, but I think you need to find this guy because I think he's going to do a lot of disruption in this space. And it's been such a pleasure talking to you today, Salman. And I hope you do great things and hope we get to collaborate more often.
Thank you very, very much.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Likewise.
Thank you. Thank you.